She was wearing a gray overcoat and a pair of sweatpants, and her wet hair was tied in a ponytail. Her face was flushed and her ears were entirely pink. I had the same throbbing in my head that I did when I first saw her. I felt something like the opposite of deja vu. A persistent suspicion that I had selective amnesia, because she felt so recognizable to me. She must have performed an operation on me and removed our years of acquaintanceship. Yet, in spite of this sense of familiarity, when she tried to hug me, I threw my hand out at her. Then I tried to hug her, as she held out her hand. In the end, we patted each other, like we were searching for weapons under each other's clothes. "Hey," she said, "are you ready yet?" I reached for my jacket. "Pretty much." She looked around. "So do I get a family discount?" "Well, it depends on what you want," I said, laughing nervously. She shook her head. "I was just kidding. I don't want to take advantage of you or anything." "What kind of music do you listen to?" I asked her. Hadley shrugged. "I sort of like classical music, like Beethoven's piano sonatas or Schubert. I don't think we have much of that here. You like anything more contemporary?" She thought about it with her face buttoned together, then burst out laughing. "My boyfriend plays black metal. I'm not so into music." "Oh," I said, and this rapport I imagined having with her vanished. Having bad taste was better than having no taste at all. My dad had felt the same way. For both of us, holding opinions on movies and books and music was an obligation, like voting. When Earl came out of the back room, I introduced Hadley as my friend. I followed her onto the street. Outside, the pale blue sky had the same depthless uniformity as in the summer, but there was already a chill in the wind. "What do you want to do?" she asked me. I shook my head. "I don't know. I only graduated last year. I mean today." Oh. We walked aimlessly, drifting farther away from my workplace, on a busy street as she prattled on about water polo. "We just started practicing," she was telling me. "The season starts in October, and the provincials are in April. I'm graduating this year, so it's my last shot." "Oh," I said, "that's good. Do you play any sports?" "I have a bike that I ride." "Do you want to see a movie?" "Sure." We could have backtracked to my car. The 7 o'clock shows wouldn't even start seating for another hour, so we had time to walk downtown. Neither of us cared what we saw. There was a lot I wanted to know about her, water polo aside, but I didn't know where to begin. After a while, it occurred to me to ask what her last name was. I mean, do we have the same last name? Hadley shook her head. "It's Wallace," she told me. My mother's father was English, which is why I named Hadley, and her mother is Scottish. I never thought of myself as Asian. I was half Asian, even though I looked different. It's funny, I guess. "So you knew my dad," I said to her. I tried to correct myself, even though I got it right the first time. "So you knew him?" "Yeah, but only the last couple of years. Only after he got sick. He called my mom and asked if we could meet. You know, I always wanted to know him. My mom didn't want us to get together, but I insisted. It was cool seeing him. It was strange, you know?" I nodded. "Do you miss him?" she asked. "Yeah, of course. I think I do too. I've never even seen his movies. The commercials and industrial films." Hadley walked faster than I did. If she resembled my father at all, she had his wide cheekbones and maybe his laugh. Otherwise, she had a collection of traits: abnormally straight posture and big teeth she flashed often, a chattiness and cheerfulness that must have come from her mother's side of her family, and perhaps belonged only to herself. I knew people like her in high school, even in university, perfectly contented, well-adjusted types, whose adolescent selves are only a few degrees off from their finished adult versions. Unlike me, they had little to apologize for, or feel embarrassed about. I wanted to know more about this girl's relationship with my father, but I lacked the nerve to force the issue. So I did more biographical sketching. As she listened carefully, I told her about how I was trying to find work as a model while going to school and my recent split with Claire. I had just mentioned my broken engagement when I caught sight of Claire. She was across the street, walking in the opposite direction toward Seamus's apartment. She had a book bag slung around one shoulder, was wearing dark jeans, her favorite pair of boots, and a peacoat I'd never seen her in. It looked like she was in a hurry and didn't notice us. "That's her," I said, turning around and covering my face with my hand. "Who?" "Claire." I pointed her out to Hadley, who made an incredulous expression. "But you just mentioned her." "I know, but that's her." With Hadley a step behind, I trailed Claire 2 blocks to a supermarket. We stood across the street as she went inside, grabbing a basket before stepping out of view. "When was the last time you saw her?" Hadley asked me. "A week before the funeral." "Why don't you just talk to her?" I shook my head. "I don't want her to see me like this." "You don't look so bad." "I could look better." "Why are we following her then?" she asked me. "I want to know how she's doing," I said, my voice cracking. "I saw her every day for the past year and a half, and then she left. Only a note. I haven't heard from her. And then my mom had lunch with her." "Why would your mom have lunch with her?" "My mom's kind of weird." "So is mine. My mom says Claire's happy." Hadley had an idea. "Do you want me to go inside and follow her?" she asked me. "Inside the supermarket?" She nodded. "I could see what she buys. That could tell you how she's doing. If she's buying TV dinners and pints of ice cream, then maybe that means she's missing you. But what if she's picking up a giant box of Magnum-sized condoms? Or a pot roast?" As I waited around the corner at a bus stop bench for Hadley to return, I realized I wasn't off to a good start as an older brother. For the first time that day, I wondered what she was hoping to find in me and what I could offer her, besides ridiculous belligerent errands. In my head, I started to think of things I could do for her. If she needed a ride, I could drive her places in my dad's car. I could tell her about my dad. I could teach her the few words of Cantonese that I knew. I could make her CDs. I could buy her liquor. I'd be another version of my dad, ironical and distant, aloof. And if she really needed it, I could follow her boyfriend around. I was still compiling my list when Hadley arrived with a bag of chips. "Sorry for the delay," she told me, taking a spot next to me on the bench. I was hungry. "Did you find her?" I asked. Hadley nodded. "Yeah. She bought a roll of toilet paper, some bananas, yogurt, and a can of chickpeas." "She hates chickpeas. I wonder if Seamus likes them," I said. "And she also bought condoms." "Oh. Is it okay that I told you that?" "Yes. I don't like lying. I hate myself when I lie." "That's okay. Condoms? But only the regular size." I closed my eyes for a second and thought I would faint or barf. "Did you notice anything else?" Hadley offered me a chip. Neither was at dinner. "Not having met her before, I can't really say whether she's happy or sad," she told me. "She's cute though." "Thanks," I answered. "Thanks." A bus pulled up in front of us. We had to tell the driver that we were just sitting there. He glowered at us. I'm going to end right there. Thank you so much. I'm selling copies for $15. If by any chance this reading has somehow made you read this book. Thanks for coming. Yes.
What made you want to write a story about a brother and half sister?
lot of friends who have siblings, and I've always been sort of curious about how those dynamics sort of are arranged and configured. And I decided it was kind of like a fun thing to explore. And I was kind of wanted to explore my own sort of oblique way, sort of identity in terms of this character's Chinese and his sister's half Asian and he's half Caucasian. And I wanted to explore how those different aspects and how class affected their upbringing, and what made them different, what made them alike. Yes.
Were you ever an aspiring male model?
For a very brief time in the 80s, I was an aspiring boy male model. I was a boy model, and no, never was. And I first started writing the book in 2002, the first draft I wrote, and put it away because there's that Zoolander was still a new movie at that time, and I realized that I needed another decade to pass before people could accept another male modeling narrative. And so this is why this book just came out. It is set in Vancouver, yes. Though there aren't any like super Vancouver references to it in the book. There are no sort of, the characters don't go on the grouse grind or go rollerblading on the seawall. But I think it's a pretty Vancouver novel insofar as the character lives in he's Chinese Canadian and he lives in the city where there are a lot of other people like that. And he doesn't really worry too much about it or obsess over it. People don't take note of it too much, and so I have time for 6 more questions.
What are you working on now?
I have a forthcoming book on horse racing that's coming out in May. I'm finishing up the proofs on that. That's coming out with Greystone, and I've got a couple of little fiction projects that I'm sort of chipping away at very, very slowly. One involves time travel, and the other one involves it involves another strange family scenario that seems to be really interesting to me. So, yes. It depends on the kind of project. If it's commissioned, it's much easier because I have a deadline. There's actually at least one person in the world who wants to read it or see it completed. And when I'm writing fiction, it's just like no one wants to see it completed. There's no hurry, I don't think. And so I have a lot of friends who are fiction writers, and the key to their success is the fact that they start writing fiction the first thing of the day. And for me, it's like the 6th thing I do in the day. So that's why there's been 10 years between my first and second novels, unfortunately. So, 8 more questions. Anyone? I can answer questions that don't even relate to my book. Like, I know a lot about trivia. Yes. I haven't quite figured out what the time machine is going to be yet. I'm like 20,000 words in, but I don't know what the time machine. I think it's going to be a canoe. It's a time traveling canoe, and it's based on there's a John Crowley story about this society of men who've gone back into time and have changed the 20th century so that the British Empire is still in existence, and their job is just to maintain the British Empire, and the world is sort of collapsing because this British Empire is being maintained and the structural integrity of time is collapsed. So I wanted to create a world where time travelers have gone back a couple hundred years and created Canada has won the World War of 1812, and we live in a North America that's very Canadianized and this sort of dominant superpower. And yeah. Well, in a more sort of clear-cut way, you know, like, so that's the idea I have, but it's going pretty slowly, so. 10 more questions. No, okay. I think that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for coming. Thanks for your time.